Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
When Microsoft first released a media player for Windows, I was thrilled to death because, quite honestly, there really weren't a lot of media players out there that could handle a variety of formats. And this was the time that Real Player was in its early days, like 2.0, and didn't suck. And QuickTime, even back then, sucked, and it's continued to suck on Windows. And unfortunately, we all know what happened to Real Player. Winamp came along, of course, and was a great replacement for the Windows Media Player. And then as the Windows Media Player evolved, Windows Media Player became a lot more sucktastic, and Winamp became better because it was unobtrusive, did everything you needed to do, and stayed generally out of your way. Whereas the Windows Media Player became more of a media management tool, and its growth, it's been overall relatively positive, but I don't think its growth has been that amazing. Some people would argue the opposite, but the UI has certainly not improved from the early days. So a user who goes by the name ADHD sent me an email to chris@pirillo.com. Says, I was recently told by a friend that Windows Media Player 11 sucks. I, luckily, still have 10. Is 11 really bad, and if so, why? If it isn't, what's so great about it? Well, since you say that you have 10, not 11, I'm guessing you're on Windows XP. And I discovered when I was doing beta testing for Microsoft, specifically the Windows Media Player, I gave them so much feedback on UI and elements inside of Windows Media Player, and I don't think one bit of feedback was actually brought into the final product. In fact, there is an issue that still is inside of Windows Media Player 11 that when it's first launched in Windows XP, at the top there are like white pixels on each side of the window. And I don't know if this only happens in classic mode, but it certainly was a problem that I had filed a bug, it disappeared, and then it came back in the final version. And it just, reinforces the fact that the Windows Media Development team, unfortunately, I think, has their heads screwed on backwards. And I think this I was an MVP, by the way, a Microsoft MVP, most valued professional, and specifically in the area of media for Windows, or Windows media platform stuff. And largely as an end user and someone who consumed media and really looked at the player space, I was telling Microsoft back before version 9 of the Windows Media Player shipped, I told them in 9, you need to support RSS. If they had done that, they would be owning the podcast space and not Apple. If they would have listened to me in Windows Media Player 9, they would have a podcast player. They didn't. They didn't in 9, they didn't in 10, and they certainly did not in 11. So the question is on XP, do you upgrade from 10 to 11? If you don't want to, I don't think there's any need to. There's some people that say network performance for Windows Media Player 11 is better. If you have a lot of files, specifically media files on the network, it may be worth it for you to upgrade to 11. But really the only compelling reason for you to upgrade to 11, specifically on XP, from what I know, everything pretty much is the same sucky base for a player. It's still bloated. But if you wanted to have an Urge subscription or any media stores that were only supported in Windows Media Player 11, that would be the reason why you would upgrade to Media Player 11. It's basically a gateway to those services. It's not necessarily a better management tool, at least in my mind. I know there are certain compatibility upgrades that's happened to it in terms of like media players that you connect and that would synchronize music or files from one device to another, but even all of that was questionable from the very beginning, and it didn't get better when Windows Media Player 11 shipped. So stick with 10. There's no need or rush to upgrade to 11. If you've got Vista, actually Vista Media Player is better looking, but that's largely because of the way Vista is built. It runs better on Vista, and of course you can't go back to Windows Media Player 10 on Windows Vista. That being said, if you don't want to run the media player, people said Winamp for the win, and that's what I would recommend as well. Try Winamp if you haven't ever tried Winamp. It's a fantastic product, still is. They're constantly in development. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly handles a million more formats. Certainly a lot more customizable. in terms of skins, and the skins are a lot better looking. Well, at least the old classic 2.x skins were a lot better looking. I don't know about the newer ones so much, but more than anything, it's unobtrusive in every way, and can be unobtrusive in ways that Media Player just never quite understood how to do. Unfortunately, Microsoft's team, and let me tell you, I want to take a sidestep just for a second before I close this out. I think iTunes is even worse in terms of software and media management than Windows Media Player. So I just so you know, just so you know, I'm not playing favorites, not by any stretch of the imagination. And that holds true iTunes on Windows and the Mac. I think one of the reasons why I can't stand it. I can't stand any application that has a horizontal scroll bar in any type of media management. That should just not exist at all. Media Player got better in that respect, but iTunes still hasn't. I've got a lot of opinions with Media Player, believe you me. So, if you haven't tried any of those, or you don't like any of those, or you have a Media Player that you happen to like better than the rest, by all means, let us know. Leave a comment on why you think I'm wrong, why you believe I'm right, or vice versa. Doesn't matter. Leave your remark or your opinion. We're always interested in looking at new stuff, or taking a look at old stuff. I could be wrong. I'm readily admitting that, but I have this opinion, and it's a pretty strong opinion. Being an advocate for the user, I hope to see all the products get better in time. And of course, you guys are beating me to the punch. They're typing in the URL of where I wanted you to go if you wanted to chat with us live. Live.Pirillo.com.